So before I started offering Shopify, I was doing branding and then also Squarespace and WordPress websites for clients, but I was working all the time for not that much money. And all of that changed when I started offering Shopify. I realized that I could charge a lot more and streamline my process. If you're new here, my name is Chloe. I'm one half of Luna Templates, where we teach designers how to design and build stores on Shopify. But I also run a design studio where we work with product-based brands across beauty and lifestyle and wellness and all that fun stuff. The thing is that Shopify is actually a really in-demand skill that clients will pay good money for, but there's kind of like a right and a wrong way to do it. With the build, things can be coded very messily in the backend, which leads to lots of bugs and things and just the wrong setup, which obviously creates a nightmare for your client. And then on the design side, you could just be making websites look pretty, look good, that's fine. Or you could be helping your clients actually make conversions, make those sales, and help them see a return on their investment. So I had to figure everything out the hard way, which took a long time and a lot of trial and error. So in this video, I've made some notes and I'm going to be talking about all the things that I wish that I'd known from day one of offering Shopify. First of all, Shopify is way more formulaic and streamlined for design. So with my service-based clients, I would find that every client kind of had a different business that I'd have to fully understand. Like, it was quite difficult to get to grips with. And then within that, they also had like the different offers or services that they were providing. And they would often need like long sales pages or long like service pages. So there was a lot of content, there was a lot of images, there was a lot of text to kind of add onto the page, because that's just kind of how service-based websites work, right? Kind of the more information, the better. Whereas e-commerce is all about being quick and snappy. People don't have a lot of time. They're browsing, they're shifting between different websites. It's a very different strategy and approach. And I actually found this so much easier. Also, most product-based businesses that I come across, it's kind of easy to understand what they're offering. Like, that's part of the sell of it, right? Is that it needs to be really easy to understand like what this product is, what it does, who it's for, why they should buy it. And obviously, if there's less content to edit, then it means that there's fewer revision rounds, less points of friction. And obviously with Shopify, a client might have a lot of pages or they might have many products, but I still find this a lot easier because they're generally using like the same product template across different products. So the second thing is that the structure and strategy of a service-based website is very different to an e-commerce website. And this took me a while to kind of get into the mindset shift of, but it's also not about wowing someone with the design. So with service-based, a lot of the time it's about creating a scroll-stopping website or something that kind of, really surprises people and has like crazy interactions and like hover effects and things. Whereas actually for e-commerce, this is not a good thing to do. You do see some websites that do it, but generally you want it to be quite formulaic because you don't want anything that distracts somebody from adding to cart and getting to checkout. So anything that's like too crazy or interferes with the scrolling or is hard to understand actually isn't going to get conversions. And I actually often see brands launching with a website that kind of looks quite unusual and it looks really cool. And so many times when I go and check back on that website, they have changed it to be something like normal. So they probably hired someone who's helping them work out why they're not getting conversions. And that a lot of the time is the reason, which obviously kind of seems a little bit boring. As a designer, you want to be doing things that are like crazy and unusual. But actually, I really enjoy working within the constraints of e-commerce strategies. Now, I'm not saying that you can't have fun with the design, but you just have to make sure that things aren't hard to understand. And actually, once I started doing less and letting the client's photography really speak and just letting the product shine and not kind of distracting too much with the design of the store, that was when I started getting way fewer revisions. Like now clients pretty much approve things on the first round because I'm not overcomplicating things. And if you look at all the big brands, that's what they're doing. They're not creating things that look super crazy. For e-commerce, you just want to keep it simple. So the third thing is that mobile cannot be an afterthought for e-commerce. So obviously this varies hugely, but with the clients that I was working with for service-based websites, most of their traffic was coming from desktop, laptop, computer. Whereas for my e-commerce clients, most of the time their traffic is coming from mobile. And I guess this is often because I'm working with beauty, fashion, wellness clients. I've had a couple of clients recently where 90% of their traffic was coming from mobile devices. So only 10% of people were on a desktop or laptop. So mobile really has to be the priority in a lot of cases, and for most of my clients it is. And obviously this might sound a little bit boring because there's not much space to be designing with. You can't do cool hover effects and things, but there is no point in adding those things if only 10% of people are going to see them. And I do find that I have to constantly be reminding my clients of this because a lot of the time they're on their laptops, they're viewing it on desktop, and I'm kind of like, yeah, remember mobile because that's where most of your customers are. So fourthly is that Shopify is a little bit restricted for good reason. So having come from Squarespace and then also from WordPress where I was using Elementor, which basically meant I could do any design that I wanted, I was so shocked when I opened Shopify and I was like, this is so restrictive. Like I can't do very much here. But then I came to realize that that is kind of for a good reason. So like I said before, for e-commerce, you don't want to be doing crazy animations, all these things that can distract people from getting to the checkout. But Shopify themes, like the good ones, are built because they know kind of what works for e-commerce. A lot of the sections are designed with that in mind, that they're going to help conversions. And if you look at some of the biggest e-commerce stores in the world, have pretty simple designs. It's the branding that like will do the talking and the photography that really brings everything to life. So if we take Rode, for example, or Tower 28, these are really cool brands and their websites do look really good, but they're not doing anything like crazy. So keeping things simple and letting your client's product really shine is what's going to really move the needle for them and keep things very streamlined for you. And actually it was way less stressful for me. I found having a blank page and kind of not knowing what to do with it or where to go with it a little bit overwhelming, and having kind of a framework of e-commerce really helped me streamline things and get results for my clients too. The fifth thing that really surprised me is that you can design and build an e-commerce store without having any imagery or any copy from the client. So hear me out here because I know this surprises a lot of people and some people have quite strong opinions about this. But actually this is really common, especially for really big design studios and agencies, because the way that things work if you are developing a product is that you're not going to have that product in your hand for quite some time, and you need to get all your ducks in the row first. You need to have the website ready to go so that when you have that product shipped and ready, you can start selling ASAP. So a lot of the time photography might be done with samples and once they have their packaging ready, which is quite near kind of the end towards their launch date. So quite a lot of the time I will find that clients come to me and they maybe haven't confirmed their copy yet, and their imagery, they haven't approached a photographer yet. And that is completely fine with me because it means that I get to decide what should go in those images, and also sometimes the vibe of the imagery. Like if I'm doing a branding project, I love that I get to also dip my toe into what kind of the photography could look like. So I will often design with placeholder content, and then that makes it easier for the client because they can tell the photographer, we need an image like this here, we need one like this here. And then I also prefer it when a client doesn't have their copy already, because if they've already been to a copywriter, a lot of the time things aren't the way that I would do it, thinking about design and user experience. But I am not a copywriter. So what I will do is kind of say what copy should go where, like what they should be saying in that copy, how long it should be, and I can add that to the design. Then the copywriter can come in and knows exactly what to do, where to put things, and ultimately it gets them a better result because it's merging the design expertise with the copywriting expertise. The other advantage to this is that not needing all your images and copywriting first, like you do with most of the time with service-based, I probably wouldn't do a service-based website unless I had all the images and copy, is that you can just go full steam ahead. You don't need to be waiting for the client to get you all of those things, which I know can often be a little bit of a hiccup in the process. So if, say, a client was going to be getting showing me images and they haven't yet, I have in my contract that I will be starting the project regardless. So they need to get me those things by that date, or I'm going to use placeholders. And this makes such a huge difference to my timelines because it means that I don't have holdups and delays. Number 6 is that I wish that I had known not to use a free theme. So on the first Shopify build that I did the massive mistake of using a free theme, and oh my goodness, the project was so hard. It was so difficult. The client didn't know how difficult it was. I was kind of like, a swan, and then their legs are like paddling underwater. I was like, it's fine, everything's fine. And actually I was staying up until 2 a.m. trying to code things that I didn't realize just came out of the box with another theme. Like it literally would have been the case of toggling a button or just adding a section. And there I was trying to code everything from scratch. It was hard. And then the client sort of came back. They were like, oh, can we not add this feature and this feature? And I was like, right, okay. So we had to add like a ton of apps to make it do that functionality, whereas actually it would have just come out of the box with another theme. So the main thing to remember is choose a good premium theme because it will pay for itself. 7th is that you need to understand themes before you mock things up and design things in Figma. So when I first started, I would design everything in Adobe XD, which I was using at the time. Now I use Figma, going through the revision rounds there, previewing it with the client, and then taking it into Shopify to build it. And I did find that I came across some problems doing this because things generally look different in the mock-ups to how they look once you've built it. So now I take a bit of a hybrid approach because I do think it's really important to be mocking some things up in Figma first, because you can make changes so much easier there than you can when you're coding things or like building it in Shopify. So that I just feel like there's no point in spending ages coding something or tweaking something or changing the layout of something to then find that the client doesn't even want it. It would be much faster just to do that in Figma first. So I kind of take a bit of a hybrid approach with that, but I know some designers are interested in designing everything in Figma first and then having somebody else build it. And this can end up with a couple of problems because if you don't understand how Shopify works and how themes works, then you might end up spending a lot on development costs because your developer will be trying to build something that actually is very tricky to build and kind of isn't really worth the payoff. I once hired a designer to do some mock-ups for me and I didn't realize how inexperienced they were with Shopify. And the things that they had designed would just be so expensive to build. And actually this has happened a few times because then I also had a client come to us who had another designer do the same thing. And we were like, there's no way we can build this. It would be so expensive, so time consuming to do. And actually it isn't a very good design that's going to work for e-commerce. So if you already know how Shopify themes work, how the things that you can edit with code, the things that come out of the box, it's going to make the whole thing so much more streamlined. One of our course members is a white label designer. So she builds websites for other designers and she comes across this problem a lot where the designers just really don't know how things work. They've gone through a whole round of revisions with the clients, approved things, got it to where they're both happy, then approaching the developer who says, actually, this isn't really feasible to build. And then the designer has to go back to the client and say, we need to tweak some more things. It's a very, very messy process. So I would always advise any designer who wants to do Shopify stores but not build them, you need to understand the structure of Shopify themes. So number 8 is that coding on Shopify is actually amazing. So as I said, I was working on WordPress before and I was trying to learn some PHP and JavaScript so that I could do more. And I actually bought a course for this and I was so confused. If you've ever looked at PHP, it is confusing. If you've ever looked at JavaScript, like, whoa, it's a whole other level. At that point, I already know some HTML and CSS and I thought, oh, I can do this now. Nope. PHP is really difficult. Whereas then when I opened up Shopify and started learning a bit of Liquid, I was like, oh, this kind of makes sense because it's actually written kind of in English. So you can start to kind of piece things together and it was a breath of fresh air. And once you've learnt some Liquid code, you can actually edit what's called the schema, which means that you can edit Shopify sections and the options there to be whatever you want them to be, which is so exciting. I thought that this was the best thing ever. So it means that if you want a section to have like an extra text box or something, you can just add that. And coming from a platform like Squarespace, this was such a game changer because it just meant that handoff was so much more intuitive, which leads me to number 8, which is that handoff is so much easier and it doesn't need as much ongoing maintenance. When I worked with WordPress, I found that there was a lot of kind of things to explain to clients. It wasn't super intuitive. And I've also found that a lot of clients want to migrate from Squarespace to Shopify because they found that maybe the designer has used a lot of custom code. And then it means that if they just change one thing slightly, then the whole page breaks. Like I've had a lot of clients say that. And with Shopify, that just isn't really an issue. I find it's kind of just locked down enough so that the client can go in and make changes to like text and imagery and things and update products really easily, but they're not actually kind of messing with the design. Like I don't very often now find that clients have broken things or that there's issues with that. And part of the reason for this as well is that you don't need to do a lot of ongoing maintenance. With WordPress, you have to update themes really regularly. But another thing that I wish that I knew is that you don't have to update Shopify themes. So there will often be something that comes up saying that there's an update available, but you only need to update this if there's a feature that your client wants that's in that update, or if there are bugs that they're experiencing that are fixed with that update. Otherwise, you don't have to touch it. And I really love this because I love focusing on the creative side of things rather than fiddling around with ongoing kind of functionality issues. Number 10 is that I wish I'd known that the backend setup can be quite time consuming, especially if you are starting a new store for a client. And some of these are really crucial for your client to be able to actually take orders. And there are a lot of things to remember here and little checkboxes and different things to consider. And I used to find it quite tricky trying to remember all these different parts and different things every time I did a store. So that's where the idea for our launch kit came in. One of the parts to that is a checklist that goes through every single step in the process of setting up a new store so that you're not going to forget something that's actually really crucial. So check the description box for the link for that, because this is honestly a resource that I wish that I'd had when I'd started. It would have made things so much easier. And the other side of that is knowing what things you should be setting up and what things your client could be setting up, because there are so many different things there and sometimes they fall outside of the remit of being a designer. But obviously you need to feel confident in that you are well within your right to be going back to the client and saying that. One of our course members recently was even asked quite a legal question and was wondering whether this was something that they should be dealing with. And we were like, absolutely not. This is for a compliance person. Don't worry about it. Tell your client that this is not within your expertise. Number 11 is that you can price Shopify higher than other platforms. So I didn't realize at first that you can be charging a lot more for Shopify than a service-based website. You are essentially creating your client a money-making machine, and they are literally making money from the website that you create. It's also really a skill that is in demand and people want. A lot of my clients have been trying to DIY things themselves, but it's only got them so far. And so then they need someone to come in who really knows what they're doing. And so they're going to pay good money for that if you can do a good job. And what's more, clients can actually see how quickly they made their investment back with me because they can see the results in the back end of their Shopify store. So I love that they can see that their investment really paid off. And it means you can charge good money for that if you can show that you get results for your clients. So if you want to know more about any of these are all topics that we cover in our signature course, Design Freedom on Shopify, which is specifically for designers, helping them make more money and know exactly what they're doing on Shopify. Basically, it cuts out all of the trial and error that I had to go through, all of those random tutorials and staying up until 2 a.m. in a panic, because we teach you exactly what to do and we are always on hand to answer any questions. You can check the link in our description. Thanks for watching and I'll see you in the next one.